What if I told you that in the darkest days of emissions laws, insurance crackdowns, and oil crises, one muscle car still ripped down the quarter mile in barely 13 seconds? The 1970 Chevelle SS 454 LS6 wasn't just fast, it was untouchable, rewriting the very meaning of street legal. Top 1 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6. It didn't just roll off the assembly line, it detonated. The 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6 wasn't a car you bought for comfort. It was a declaration, a middle finger to insurance companies and fuel crises. On paper, it looked like another muscle coupe. On the street, it was a factory-made predator. The Chevelle's exterior was bold but deceptively simple. A wide stance, domed hood with functional cowl induction, blacked-out grille, and optional racing stripes that screamed menace without a word. Inside, the cabin was straightforward, bench or bucket seats, no frills, no unnecessary gadgets. Chevrolet wasn't selling luxury, they were selling acceleration. Under that cowl hood sat the monster, the LS6 454 cubic inch V8. Officially rated at 450 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque, insiders whispered the real output was closer to 500 horses. Mated to either a close-ratio 4-speed manual or a heavy-duty turbo-hydromatic 400, this wasn't just a muscle car, it was Detroit's nuclear option. Here's the kicker. Despite its showroom weight of over 3,900 pounds, the Chevelle LS6 could scorch the quarter mile in 13.1 seconds at 108 miles per hour, bone stock. 0 to 60 miles per hour? Around 5.4 seconds, numbers usually reserved for exotic sports cars, not mid-sized family coupes. And while many automakers fudged their performance figures downward to appease insurers, the LS6 proved its brutality on drag strips across America. But rarity added fuel to the legend. Only about 4,475 L6-equipped Chevelles were built in 1970, making survivors today seven-figure collectibles. Back then, it cost $1,000 more than a base Chevelle, a serious sum in 1970 dollars. Buyers knew they weren't getting plush interiors or luxury trims. They were paying for a time bomb in the engine bay, ready to annihilate stoplight challengers and embarrass factory rivals. The LS6 made Chevrolet Chevelle the street's reigning heavyweight champion, but raw horsepower alone didn't define the 1970. Some cars blended speed with style, others hid their true menace under quieter badges. Top 2. 1970 Plymouth HEMI Cuda. Some cars don't just arrive, they explode onto the scene. The 1970 Plymouth HEMI Cuda was one of those rare beasts. With its wild colors, billboard graphics, and a factory option list that practically screamed street brawler, this wasn't just a muscle car, it was a neon-painted declaration of war. Externally, the Cuda wore the sharp lines of Plymouth's new E-body. Wide stance, shaker hood poking through, and options like high-impact colors, limelight, vitamin C, and inviolet that made sure you saw it coming. The interior? Simple but purposeful high-back bucket seats, rally dash, and a pistol-grip Hurst shifter reminding drivers this wasn't a car for Sunday cruises. Beneath that shaker scoop lurked Chrysler's legendary 426 HEMI V8. Officially rated at 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque, insiders knew those numbers were conservative. Pair it with either the heavy-duty Torque Flight Automatic or the A833 4-speed manual, and suddenly the Cuda became less of a car and more of a street-legal drag weapon. Despite tipping the scales at nearly 3,900 pounds, the HEMI Cuda could rocket through the quarter mile in 13.1 seconds at over 107 miles per hour. 0 to 60? A blistering 5.6 seconds, numbers that embarrassed plenty of high-end European sports cars. But here's the twist. While many muscle cars were plentiful, the HEMI Cuda was never mass-produced. Only about 652 hardtops were built in 1970, with the 426 HEMI option, making each survivor today a rolling goldmine. Back in the day, insurance premiums and pump prices scared off buyers, leaving these cars to enthusiasts who didn't care about comfort or convenience. Today, collectors line up with seven-figure checks. A pristine 1970 HEMI Cuda can crack $1.5 million at auction, proof that forgotten showroom oddities became investment trophies. What once sat unsold under fluorescent lights now sits under museum spotlights. The HEMI Cuda embodied Mopar's wild mix of show and go. But not every street killer of the 70s wore flamboyant colors. Some came dressed in more understated packages, quietly hiding devastating performance under the hood. Top 3. 1970 Dodge Challenger RT4 26 HEMI. If the HEMI Cuda was Plymouth's loud, flamboyant street brawler, then the 1970 Dodge Challenger RT HEMI was its darker, more sinister twin. Longer, meaner, and every bit as brutal, the Challenger arrived as Dodge's big swing at the muscle car wars, a heavyweight bruiser built for domination. From the outside, the Challenger looked like pure intimidation. Its wide body lines, aggressive grille, and long hood announced its presence with authority. Buyers could personalize with wild, high-impact paint shades like Plum Crazy or Sublime, paired with RT stripes running down the flanks. Inside, Dodge gave drivers more refinement than the bare-bones Cuda. Wood-grain trim, full Raleigh gauge cluster, and plush high-back seats gave the Challenger a touch of class, while the pistol-grip shifter still reminded you it was a street fighter first. Under that long hood lived the real reason buyers checked the RT box, the legendary 426 HEMI, officially rated at 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. The elephant motor was brutally understating its true strength. Backed by either the TorqueFlite automatic or the A833 4-speed manual with Dana 60 rear, the Challenger was engineered to transfer all that thunder to the asphalt. Despite being heavier than the HEMI Cuda, tipping over 4,000 pounds, the Challenger RT shocked everyone with its speed. Quarter-mile runs in the 1,350 miles per hour proved Dodge wasn't just building a show car. With 0 to 60 times around 5.8 seconds, it could stand toe-to-toe with the best street machines of the day. Yet here's the twist. For all its hype, Dodge sold only about 356 HEMI power-pound Challenger RT hardtops in 1970, making it rarer than many expect. What was once a niche choice, too expensive, too risky for casual buyers, has become one of the most sought-after Mopars in the world. Today, a pristine HEMI Challenger RT commands over $400,000 at auction, with ultra-rare combinations like convertible Hemis hitting 7 figures. Collectors recognize that this car wasn't just muscle, it was Dodge's definitive answer to Mustang and Camaro dominance. The Challenger RT proved Dodge could balance brute power with unexpected refinement. But Pontiac had its own answer, lighter, wilder, and built to chase quarter-mile glory. Top 4 1970 Pontiac GTO Judge Ram Air 4. In 1970, Pontiac didn't just want to build a fast car, they wanted to create a cultural weapon. The GTO Judge was more than muscle. It was a rebellion painted in outrageous colors, shouting across America's highways that speed and style could live in the same body. From first glance, the Judge looked nothing short of radical. Bright paint codes like Orbit Orange and Cardinal Red, combined with wild side stripes and a rear deck spoiler, made sure no one mistook it for a plain GTO. This was Pontiac's muscle machine for the young and bold. Inside, drivers found a cockpit designed for both comfort and control. High-back bucket seats, a hood-mount tachometer, and rally gauges kept performance in focus, while optional wood-grain accents added a veneer of class. But it was under the hood where the real judgment came down. The Ram Air 400 cubic inch V8 packed forged internals, high-flow heads, and a radical camshaft. Pontiac rated it at 370 horsepower and 445 pound-feet of torque, but seasoned racers knew those numbers were far too conservative. Made it to a close ratio 4-speed manual and backed by a 3.9 or 4.33 rear axle, the Judge was engineered for drag strip combat. Despite the flashy exterior, the Judge Ram Air 4 wasn't just for show. Period tests revealed 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.7 seconds, and quarter-mile times in the 13.8 second range at 104 miles per hour. This wasn't the poser's muscle car some critics expected, it was a legitimate threat to Dodge and Plymouth's Hemis. The twist, though, was its rarity. Pontiac only built around 379 Ram Air 4 Judges in 1970, making survivors today nearly impossible to find. Back then, few buyers were willing to gamble on a car this radical. Insurance premiums, high costs, and intimidating performance scared off the casual crowd. But those who bought one unknowingly secured a golden ticket. Today, Judge Ram Air 4S have crossed $200,000 at auction, cementing their place as one of Pontiac's most iconic creations, equal parts showpiece and street predator. The judge proved Pontiac could mix flash with ferocity, but Buick took a different path. Quiet menace, hiding under a gentleman's suit. Top 5 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1. When people think of the fastest muscle cars of the 70s, Buick isn't usually the first name that comes to mind. Yet in 1970, the GSX Stage 1 emerged as the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing, a car that looked refined but could shred quarter miles with shocking authority. The GSX wasn't subtle. Buick offered it in just two colors, Saturn yellow and Apollo white, with black body stripes, a chin spoiler, and a rear deck wing that screamed performance. The aggressive stance made sure nobody mistook it for a retiree's car. Inside, however, Buick stayed true to its luxury DNA. Plush vinyl bucket seats, full instrumentation, and optional air conditioning created a balance of comfort and performance rare in the muscle era. But lurking under the hood was where the GSX truly rewrote Buick's reputation. The Stage 1485 cubic inch V8 was officially rated at 360 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque, the highest torque figure of any American car at the time. In reality, many experts estimate the true output was closer to 400 horsepower, making it one of the most underrated factory brutes of its decade. What shocked the muscle car world was how quickly this Buick moved. Independent testing clocked 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.5 seconds, and the quarter mile in the 13.4-second range, numbers that put it toe-to-toe with Chevelles, Roadrunners, and even Hemi-powered Mopars. The GSX wasn't just quick for Buick, it was one of the quickest of the entire muscle era. The twist? Despite its performance pedigree, production was limited. Only 678 GSX models were built in 1970, making them extraordinarily rare. Because Buick marketed itself to a more mature audience, many muscle buyers overlooked the GSX. Insurance companies also drove potential owners away with sky-high premiums. Yet today, that very scarcity fuels its legendary status. A well-preserved GSX Stage 1 can fetch $150,000 to $200,000 at auction, a fitting tribute to a car that proved Buick could fight and win on the street. The GSX showed that raw torque wrapped in luxury could stun the competition. But Plymouth had a different strategy, pairing Hemi power with one of the most aggressive shapes of the decade. Top 6 1970 Oldsmobile 442 WT30. In 1970, Oldsmobile shocked the street with a car that proved elegance could coexist with brutality. The 442 W30 didn't just look dignified, it was a street-legal hammer, ready to smash rivals in the quarter mile while wearing the clothes of a gentleman. On the surface, the 442 W30 carried Oldsmobile's trademark blend of refinement and muscle. Its long, sculpted lines, dual-intake fiberglass hood, and subtle W30 callouts hinted at hidden intent. Red inner fender wells gave it a signature look, while optional striping added menace to its otherwise polished exterior. Inside, the cabin leaned toward luxury. Strato bucket seats, wood-grain trim, and rally gauges reminded drivers that Oldsmobile customers expected comfort as well as performance. But underneath that refinement, the W30 was hiding hardware designed for the drag strip. At its heart was the 455 Ci Rocket V8, factory-rated at 370 horsepower and a staggering 500 pound-feet of torque. With a hotter camshaft, aluminum intake, forced air induction, and a specially tuned Rochester carb, it delivered ferocity well beyond its conservative rating. A close ratio 4-speed or turbo hydromatic sent power to a 3.91 or 4.33 rear gear, making sure torque was always on tap. Despite its luxury leanings, the 442 W30 could storm the quarter mile in 13.7 seconds at over 103 mph, numbers that stunned those expecting a plush cruiser. In reality, dyno sheets showed the motor was closer to 420 gross horsepower factory figures, deliberately underrated for insurance reasons. But only about 3,101 W30s were produced in 1970, making them rare even when new. Many buyers passed them over thinking Oldsmobile was for executives, not racers. That mistake left collectors today scrambling to reclaim what was once overlooked. The W30 redefined what a street-legal muscle car could be. Sophistication on the outside, savagery under the hood. It proved Oldsmobile could build a car that embarrassed GTOs and SS Chevelles while still offering comfort for long highway drives. Today, well-preserved W30s command prices north of $150,000, 0 cents, making them both a collector's dream and a symbol of muscle-earring ingenuity. The 1970 Oldsmobile 442 W30 was proof that muscle could wear a tailored suit, but when unleashed, it tore up the strip with ruthless authority. Its legacy endures as one of the most complete muscle cars of the decade. Top 7 1971 Ford Mustang Boss 351. Ford's answer to Mopar might was sharp, loud, and rev-hungry. The 1971 Mustang Boss 351 wasn't about brute cubic inches, it was about precision. With high compression, solid lifter cams, and a 6,000 RPM redline, this Mustang proved you didn't need a Hemi to terrorize the quarter mile. The 1971 model year saw the Mustang grow wider and longer, earning critics scorn for being too big. Yet within this body, Ford's engineers slipped in something magical: the Boss 351 package, a performance blend that transformed the heavy 71 into a dragstrip menace. Externally, it wore bold graphics, dual NACA hood scoops, front and rear spoilers, and Magnum 500 wheels that shouted purpose. Inside, the car came with high-back bucket seats, optional tachometer, and minimal luxury. It was a driver's car above all else. At its heart was the 351 Cleveland V8, specially tuned with 11.71 compression, solid lifters, and a performance camshaft, rated at 330 horsepower but underrated in reality. Hooked to a 4-speed manual and a 3.91 traction lock rear axle, it was built to scream down straight lines while still revving like a small block. On paper, some dismissed it as just a 351, but at the track it told a different story. Independent tests clocked the Boss 351 at 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.7 seconds, and the quarter mile in 13.8 seconds at over 100 miles per hour, matching or beating many of its big block rivals. The key wasn't sheer displacement, but Ford's tuning wizardry, which made this engine one of the best small blocks Detroit ever produced. Only 1,806 Boss 351s were built in 1971, making them incredibly rare today. Collectors prize them not only for their performance, but also as the last true high-compression muscle Mustang before emissions and insurance strangled the breed. Today, values hover in the six-figure range, with Concours examples exceeding $120,000. It's a car that carried the Mustang name proudly into the toughest years of the muscle era. The Boss 351 proved small block fury could humiliate big block legends, but Pontiac had no interest in being humiliated. Their answer came with Trans Am flares and a 455 cubic inch beast, the 1973 Pontiac Trans Am 455 Super Duty, the last true fire-breathing survivor of the decade. In Top 8, 1973 Pontiac Trans Am 455 Super Duty. By 1973, muscle cars were supposed to be dead, choked by emissions, strangled by insurance, and silenced by regulation. Yet Pontiac refused to bow out quietly. Rising from the ashes, the Trans Am 455 Super Duty became the phoenix of the decade, roaring when everything else whispered. The Trans Am had always carried a brash attitude: shaker hood scoop, fender vents, and the now iconic screaming chicken decal. In 1973, Pontiac unleashed its masterpiece, the 455 Super Duty, SD 455. This wasn't just another big engine, it was a carefully engineered, hand-assembled beast. Externally, the Trans Am looked flamboyant with its wide stance, color-keyed spoilers, Rally 2 wheels, and functional hood scoop. Inside, drivers found high-back vinyl bucket seats, a machine-turned dash bezel, and a full-gauge cluster, making it as much cockpit as cabin. Under the shaker sat the heart of the legend, a 455 cubic inch V8, fitted with reinforced block, forged rods, unique cylinder heads, and a high-lift camshaft. Pontiac rated it at 310 horsepower, but in reality it was making closer to 370-400 horsepower gross. It came paired with a 4-speed manual or turbo 400 automatic, both with beefed-up driveline components. Here's the twist. In an era where cars were gasping for air, the SD 455 thrived. Independent tests recorded 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 5.4 seconds, and quarter-mile times in the low 13s at over 104 miles per hour. Numbers unheard of in 1973. It wasn't supposed to exist, and yet it did, shocking both critics and rivals. Pontiac built just 252 SD455 Trans Ams in 1973, making them among the rarest and most valuable muscle cars of the 70s. They've since become million-dollar collectibles, commanding staggering prices at auction thanks to their combination of style, rarity, and outlaw performance. To own one today is to hold a piece of defiance, a car that beat the odds when everyone else surrendered. The Trans Am 455 Super Duty wasn't just quick, it was a declaration that muscle still had fire left. The 1970 were supposed to bury the muscle car. Instead, these 8 machines proved that raw horsepower and street dominance couldn't be legislated away. From the Pontiac Trans Am SD455's rebellious roar to the Chevelle LS6's earth-shaking torque, each one carried Detroit's legacy of speed into uncertain times. Today, they're not just cars, they're survivors, reminders that true legends never fade, even when the rules close in. Which of these quarter-mile killers would you choose to keep in your garage? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget, this is legendary classic cars, where history still burns rubber.